Yeah.
Vova, awesome. All right, so Vova, if you could just begin by telling me a little bit about your background, your experience, and how you became a programmer.
Oh, it's kind of a long journey. Started around 15 years ago. I started mainly with Microsoft technologies, and like what was really important for me that I liked what I was doing. So part of that, it wasn't just working for for different projects, but I always was doing different side projects, like a pet projects, right? Because unfortunately, when you're working on specific projects, they have how to say, like, limitations. You have a stake, you have all of this. So sometimes changing from one to another, it's not really easy. But that's why I had those pet projects where I basically were trying different stuff, because for me it was important. I'd better fail my pet project than the very big commercial products. And from what I see, usually for many developers, like they just go in direction. There's some new trendy stuff. Let's try it on a big project, but instead of just going slowly and trying it somewhere else. So yeah, after that, basically, I did work. I started as a developer in Ukraine. Then after that, I migrated to Denmark. And after Denmark, since it was cold there, I came here to Australia. And yeah, for 4 years now I'm here, and I did work already for big organizations here, from investment companies to just startups. And I like culture here. And what I like is just that people are also like open to suggestions, and that's basically where I am.
Yep, awesome. So I understand that there's many different types of developers, front end, back end, and everything in between. Does a great programmer, do they need to understand back end and front end and how they all fit together, or can one be a great developer and just specialize?
Uh, there's pros and cons on each side. If you think, let's say, about Google or other big companies, they never hire you because you have Java or you have C# or something else. They just see what you're doing and what's your level. They are testing algorithms, some other stuff. So what I mean is basically choose what works for you. Like if you like doing backend, just go with backend. Don't bother with the front end. If you are on the front end side, like same stuff. If you like both, here you go. What is important is just that most of practices are similar, no matter which frameworks. Let's say I was doing C# for, I don't know, more than 13 years, and then I tried Java, right? On the very beginning, it was a bit harsh, but after I found right tools, like I like Java. So terms and terminology is similar. Technologies are similar. So there is no problem with that. But I would say do that what makes you happy, and that's it.
Are there languages that everyone should know, or are there certain things that every developer really should have a good understanding of?
It's probably hard because, again, in the end of the day, lots of things are similar. For me, important is style and syntaxes, right? For instance, I don't like Ruby on Rails because of syntaxes. Just so that's what I'm saying. Like I will never learn this language because I just don't like it. But it's my personal, right? There are lots of great products utilizing Ruby, and that's fine. I'm fine with it. But for me, it doesn't work. So again, I'm following my simple rule. If it makes me happy, I will learn it. If not, just, well, I won't touch it. But again, there's no single language, unfortunately, specifically nowadays with current technology. That's what sometimes even make me upset, that technologies are going even too fast. And if you want to keep up with everything, well, it's just really hard. So that's why it's just better to choose few and stick with them.
So what makes a good developer?
Oh, it's a combination. I think it's mainly passion. So if you like what you're doing, and a collaboration, it's also important because sometimes you're working in a teams, you're different, like we are different people, right? We have different characters, we have different backgrounds. So that's why it's like, it's not just coding. It's a lot of soft skills. Sometimes you need to convince other person, well, that my solution is better. Sometimes you need to accept that your solution is worse. So to be a good developer is like, again, passion, and be always open, because it helps you to learn, and it helps you to teach other people, because in the end of the day, it's just team goal. So if all of us developers work on the same goal, and we are kind of as a team really working together, then it's easy, because in the end of the day, like, nobody wants to hate Mondays, right? If you go to the job, you like it, it's like you're happier. So that's important for me.
And so we just spoke about what makes a good developer, but what separates a good developer from someone who is great, like top of their fields, a standout?
Well, it's probably a game combination. I would say a great developer is probably the person who has most of the experience, who mainly trying lots of stuff. But there's also downside, because if that person doesn't have soft skills, he's always conflicting with other. So there's more harm than good. So that's why, again, like, it's kind of, as a good developer and top developer, sometimes I've been in teams where you don't want to work with those top and best developers, because they are selfish. They don't listen to other people. They think they know everything, and that's why after sometimes mood in a team not really good. But again, it really depends.
So
I don't know if it's
do you think all great programmers should be involved in mentoring, or should they become managers at some point, or can you be a great developer and not be a manager?
Well, that's what I sometimes don't like at the companies, that people say that companies and managers say, oh, we are all different and we accept that, but in the end of the day, they force everyone to do a presentation, they force everyone to teach other. They don't ask, do you like it or not? Because there are people who basically are really great developers, but they are quiet. For them, it's hard to mentor somebody else. It's hard to go to conference and speak out, right? So again, it should be, do it if you like it, because if what I see usually, even with myself, as soon as I don't like something in the company, I will look for something else. So definitely not. If you feel like a manager, just, yeah, it's easy, and there are benefits to be manager with a developer background. But if you don't like it, if you don't feel it, just, well, stay where you are. You can be tech lead, you can be architect, or in the end of the day, you can still be a software developer, which is, again, you can contribute lots of to team success, because in the end of the day, what's important, it's just team success. It's not important what's your role, because your role is, something, how to say, just not important, because difference between role is responsibilities. But again, most important that everyone commit to the team success. That's it.
So where do you think people go wrong, or where are people misguided about what makes a great programmer?
I think that most of people think that being a great developer, you need to be really top developer, like in terms of skills, in terms of programming, but they forget about soft skills, because what's hardest in a development job is to communicate with other and find a common sense. That's what many people are missing, because there are lots of great developers who are kind of independent. They work by themselves. They pick up a task and just do it. They don't care if it's right or wrong. They just do it. They close a ticket and think that that's it. But later there's support. There's other problems. It's code complexity, because again, as a team, you can write a great code, but if it's not readable, what's the point of that?
So when you're interviewing or looking for a developer, how would you recommend that people, how could people, what advice would you give to people to help them identify a great programmer?
Usually, I would say it's probably the way how I was hired into Australian company. It just, when I was asked question and I said, I don't know it. I can guess, but I just don't know it. And it's still fair because the thing is, nowadays technology is a huge field. You can't know everything. What is very important and what is very honest when you say, well, I don't know it. Or another thing, when you hire that person and that person will tell you, well, can you help me? Or they can go to other one and just ask for help. So being honest and saying that you don't know something, you need help, that's for me extremely important.
And when hiring developers, what do you think are some red flags?
Usually red flags for me would be when people try to tune their CV to the project needs. So I've seen it a lot. So when there's job posts, people just go and grab the CV, rewrite completely to that job, right? And it's easy to see when you ask a question and press, oh, I don't know it. But then what's the point to put in there? So that's why I still sometimes, I would say, even this word hate when a recruiter asks me for my CV, because it's the same. You go to LinkedIn and you see all my experience and that's it. It doesn't change. It's the same CV. Only sometimes what I update, okay, now after 1 or 2 years, I have new technologies and things like that. And that's when you go back to people who are writing a CV for each interview, it's wrong. Because if you don't know anything, it's really easy to find out. You just ask a few questions and you see people, oh, I don't know this, or I've been just playing with that. So that's why when you make your CV, it's very important. Put there where you are confident. If you are not confident with those technologies or languages, just don't add them there. You can mention, I like to play with this or that, but just don't put it there.
So I've heard or read on the internet about this idea of the 10x programmer, someone who, who's very, very skilled. Some would consider them to be great, and they can be 10 times more effective than some of their peers. Do you think that's true or accurate or possible?
Yes. Even I see it that like many times when I see PRs and I see something wrong, I could rewrite it and see how much time it takes me. And I've seen many times that, okay, I can do this in 1 day and some other person is doing it in 5 days, right? So it's all, because if you think about development, it's same as anything. It's just coming back to experience, right? So that's why those top developers, they have lots of experience because they played with those technologies. This is why if you know how to do it, you just do it. You don't need to read about this, which is basically taking time. So yeah, definitely I've seen it many times.
What sort of advice would you give for people beginning in their programming journey, or they might be a few years in, but they really want to become experts and
start your own project? Think about any idea, even if that idea exists, whatever. Just start your project. Why? Because then you will have a flow from beginning till end, and then when you go to the company, you can say, "Oh, here's my GitHub. Have a look what I've done." Right? So in this case, even the person doesn't have a commercial experience, but you can see, oh, that guy or that girl just they are doing great stuff because they like what they're doing, and that helps.
Yeah. Any other advice for the programmers out there?
Open source. The other stuff is just, go open source, because right now many open source projects, they try to keep up with documentation, but in the end of the day, when you're using some libraries, you still need to go to their GitHub page and read code. So one thing when you start project is you learn how to do, like you kind of proving that you know how to do. But when you go to open source project, you can learn lots of great way of doing stuff, because usually top contributor, like people who contribute to open source project, they're really good one, right? So you can learn. Of course, there's bad examples as everywhere, but the point is, if you go through the code, you will see how process going, and even more with open source projects, you will, if you contribute to those type of projects, you will be involved in a full process, because again, previously when you ask, it's not just development, it's just a process, how you contribute with other people, how you communicate with them. You create a pull request, somebody review it, you get a feedback, you need to fix it. So that's basically it. It's like, I would say, own project, open source project, that's the way to go.
Awesome. I think we might just go back to the very beginning and just talk. I'd like to hear more about your experience, like what you've worked on, what sort of technologies you've worked on. Are you, front end, back end?
Yep.
Yeah, a bit more about you.
I like to do both. So I've been doing Angular, I don't know, probably for more than 7 years, even more, I think, because I started with AngularJS and now there's Angular. So I just like doing JavaScript. On a front-end side, basically, it's a .NET. I remember I started in 2005 when .NET was in really bad shape, where you've been doing everything. There was no good packages, there was nothing. So we've been doing that, but then slowly it evolves, like lots of stuff is already there. You just install framework, you have user management, you install new packages, you have something else. So that's basically, then I started with Azure, because again, it's Azure is a cloud, a Microsoft cloud. And it was great. So I started learning, because the problem when you're reading books, you need a practice, because on a book, this pattern, like recommendation sounds great, but when you start working with it, well, it's just for specific needs, right? So that's where I started with clouds, because my first time I learned about distributed systems, I started doing some clouds, and probably for past, I would say now 2 years, right? I've been doing Java. So I had the opportunity to switch from C# to Java. Also, I've been doing lots of Elasticsearch. I still like it. I would love to work it, but unfortunately in Australia, there's not many projects with Elasticsearch. But yeah, in the end of the day, I just like doing everything, because that's what I love to do.
And tell me about some of your projects, your own projects that you've worked on.
Oh man, I have lots of projects. Many of them they're already dead, but that was a great experience, because for me, failure is just, well, I failed, but I've learned a lot how to do and how not to do stuff. Currently, my latest project is called Flymark. It basically for ballroom dance and different type of competition. So basically, people who are taking part in sport competitions. I have a project where we cover full life cycle of event. So from a registration till a competition, where we kind of calculate scores and all of this. It's all of that integrated with online results. Like when judge puts scores, it's already synchronized with the server. So there's no way to modify those scores without proper approval. But even if somebody approves it, you still see the process that somebody changed the score. So which is really nice. Yeah, it's still a great project because there's lots of issues that, and again, as every project, what I've learned is how to support products, because the trick part of this project is that most of competition they are Saturday and Sunday, and that's why it's very important to develop without bugs as less as possible, because if you make a bug, somebody call you. So yeah, I had another project. It was like social network for pets. It failed. Yeah, it was going great, but then, well, not in the end of the day, not many people were interested in that. One project was like a sale tickets for online events, and the problem was that I really regret, because I wasn't experienced at that time. I started building a system which supposed to be like online store for everything, like probably like Amazon, right? And that's why I failed. Instead of me doing the simple stuff, oh, here's your ticket, you buy it, and then the people who organize events, simple software to validate a ticket. I've been building, you can sell t-shirts, you can sell music and all of this, and it failed because, it was too complicated. So yeah, each project is just basically I've learned something new, and if I would come back, I'm smarter now, so I will do it all of this in a different way. And that's why, like when we go through the commercial projects, for me, it's important to utilize those stuff. Oh, because, well, we need to release it tomorrow. So unfortunately, well, we need to do it. How do we do that? Because it's not positive thinking which saves the project. It's because positive thinking itself is nothing, right? Positive thinking is how do we get there having what we have. So limited resources, limited time, like, so it's a way how to find a solution for that, because many people think that positive thinking is just, oh, you have 1 year of a backlog, let's do it with a positive thinking in 3 months. It doesn't work that way. So that's a way how you find a solution. Well, choose a minimum viewable version, things like that. So yeah, I would love to talk about project way longer, but yeah, I think we have a limited time.
All right. Well, Vova, I think that about covers it. Is there anything you think we should mention?
No, I don't know. I think that's it.